Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christeen Era.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership.
Today we have a thought-provoking episode lined up for you as we explore the art of interviewing and why it has become more critical than ever for teams to host great interviews. Ryan Englin is passionate about supporting growing businesses, particularly in blue-collar industries, to build amazing productive companies by hiring the right people. Growing up, he saw his own father working 12-hour shifts and weekends, and as an owner-operator, witnessing firsthand the struggles that these companies have in hiring quality frontline employees. Ryan was determined to help them find a better way. Ryan Englin is the founder and CEO of Core Matters, and I want to welcome Ryan to our podcast today.
Thanks, Christine, for having me. I love this topic. You'll find out I'm super passionate about it.
Yeah, and I have come to learn as an entrepreneur that the hiring piece is key because I myself, through the years, as building my business, I suffered from employee PTSD, where I had employees. I was so traumatized by the experience as a business owner, and it really made owning a business and running a business so much harder that I ended up walking away from it all and then rebuilding it from scratch because the employee, impact of not hiring the right people just really impacted my quality of life and even my business model. So I am so excited to talk to you about this today. And I appreciate you taking the time to join us on our podcast and share your knowledge and your experience with our listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the saying, business would be great if it wasn't for customers or employees, right?
Right. Or maybe not even doing the things that we don't love and enjoy and working from our strengths.
And I love the people side of the business so much because especially in blue collar, your people business. I mean, that's what you sell is the access to your talent, access to their skills, and access to service. And so when we start thinking about we are in the people business, all of this becomes so much clearer.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's since I have rebuilt and really invested the right time, and an interest in hiring and learning what is it about. The team that we have now is just phenomenal, and it has made all the difference for us to be able to move forward and scale and grow the company. So as soon as I started learning about the proper way to hire, the right people to hire, what does this look like? It was really a game changer for me as an entrepreneur to, figure out what my vision was and chase after my dreams and then have the support that I needed to scale and grow the company. So I think, the people are very important on both sides.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I know one of the things, before we dive in, I want to talk about this because, I have become an author in the last couple years and wrote The Profit First for Lawn Care and Landscape Businesses. And I know you are about to join our amazing community and, you're an author yourself and you have a book that's launching October 17th of this year. So would you mind kind of sharing with us what your book is about and the title of your book?
Yeah, so the title of the book is Hire Better People Faster. And it's targeted at small and medium businesses because that's where I see the most struggle. They don't have the resources and power to really put a lot of effort towards recruiting. Often it's the owner that's still very much involved in that process. And so what we do throughout the book, it's a very technical how-to book. It's all about the system that we built. We call it the CoreFit hiring system. And we walk them through the 7 components that they need to look at in their business so that they can attract, hire, and retain the right people. We walk them through the process, how to set it up, how to measure it, make sure it's working. And we actually give them a lot of tips and tricks on how to get results faster. And fast is the key. That's the big thing.
Right.
It's moving quickly.
Right. And there's areas that we really want to be strategic to move fast in, but
Mhm.
then there's also areas where we want to slow down because going slower is actually faster. Like we'll get a better result.
Absolutely. We tell people that we want you to move quickly through the interview process when you look at the calendar, but we don't want you to move quickly when you're face to face with the candidates. We want you to spend time, get to know them, get to know each other well. I ask people all the time, I say, how many marriages do you know that worked out after a 15-minute first date? But for some reason, we have this belief that we can interview somebody for 15 minutes and know everything we need to know about them and whether or not they're going to take care
Right.
of our business and our customers.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, when who wants to be back in the dating world, but also who wants to be back into hiring, key employees. It's you want to do it right from the start and out the
Yeah,
gate and through your entire hiring and onboarding process, because then you're setting not only the business up for success, but your team that you're bringing on board up for success. So they're invested long term in your company and what your mission, vision, and purpose is.
absolutely. Yeah, we talk the connection to your company's culture, the mission, the purpose, your values. It's so important because the modern workforce no longer wants to trade time for money. What they want is they want to trade their time for a greater sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
can't give them that or you can't communicate that well, they're going to look somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we changed out the gate when we started realizing the importance of, with hiring the right people, but really communicating who we are, what our culture is, and creating that culture because your culture happens whether you're intentional about it or not.
Absolutely agree with you. Yeah, there is a culture there. You might not like it, but there is a culture, and being intentional is so important. But I think even more important than that is being able to articulate it. So being intentional helps you with controlling it, but if you can't communicate it well, then
Mm.
the job seekers out there aren't going to know. They're going to think you're just like everybody else. And especially when you look at, say, home services, for example, most of the people out there don't just wake up one day and say, I want to go work in the home services industry. No, they've been there before. They've worked for your competition and they know what it's like. So if you cannot communicate effectively how you're different, they're going to look at you the same way they looked at their old boss. And keep this in mind, they left their old boss or they're in the process of leaving their old boss. So you really want to make sure you
Right.
differentiate yourself well enough that they look at you and say, this is different. And different in this case is good.
Yeah, and I like that because there's two things that really kind of sat with me when you said that is if you do look like their old boss and they come to your company and they start working, or maybe it's a slight difference, they're very possibly gonna bring that baggage from their old
Mm,
workplace and mindset into yours.
absolutely.
So, I think that that's something to be aware of is what mindset are they bringing and can we shift that mindset because we're different enough before even day one?
Yeah. And I love that you bring up the mindset because what that does is that says we are dealing with a human being. We are not dealing with a set of hands or another cog in our machine that we can just dispose of. We have to understand that they have a certain uh, basis for their thoughts and their beliefs and what they think about work and how they think about their employer and the industry and the customer. And we hear a lot of times people are like, well, the only way to hire people right now is to pay them more money. I just got to pay
Mm.
$2 more than everybody else. And you have to remember that the person with the mindset that's attracted by $2 more an hour is that same person that's going to leave you for $2 more an hour.
It's a great point.
So we
Very
can't
good
always just
point.
be chasing money. There's so many more things that are important than money when it comes to being able to attract people. And the people that you do attract for more money are going to leave you for more money. So you can't be surprised when that happens.
Yeah, and the other point that you made, that I heard you say is the communication piece of our culture.
Mm.
And I know in all the years that I've worked with business owners and entrepreneurs, we think we communicate so well about so many things. And one of the consistent things that I find that we do not communicate well about is our expectations and
Mhm.
our vision and our goals.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'll share with you real quick what our process is for interviewing, because what you said, we identify where that should happen in the interview process. So this is the point where if you're not behind the windshield right now listening to this, break out the pen and paper and get ready to take some notes. But we believe that there are 4 phases to the interview process. And the first one is pre-qualification. It's just making sure we should spend more time with that person. But where it gets really important from there is culture fit. And that's the second step of the interview process. Do they align to our culture? Can we provide them with the energy and the motivation and the training and the leadership that they need in order to thrive in our culture? Here's the reality. There's no such thing as a bad culture for the right person. Now, there are cultures out there that I think are toxic, but there are other people that are like, no, these are my people.
Right.
And so there's no such thing as a bad culture for the right person. But you've got to find those people and be able to articulate what your culture is. And the reason we do culture fit first is we might have the right person applying for the wrong job. And so we might say, hey, you know what? I know you came in because you wanted to be a crew lead, but you know what? I really think you'd be really good on estimating because you have that culture fit. That's someone you want on your team. Then we start looking at position fit. Did they apply for the right job? Are they in the right position? But then the most important stage, and everybody that I have ever talked to misses this stage, is the offer meeting. It's spending time face to face, belly to belly with someone who you want on your team. You've already made the decision to hire them, but spend 60 to 90 minutes setting proper expectations. So when you set expectations, like that was a trigger for me. That's an opportunity to talk about the things that are going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the truth. I'm not perfect. Christine, I'm going to guess you're not perfect either.
Oh no,
We
I'm
work
I'm always
together.
causing problems.
If we work together long enough, we are going to drive each other nuts at some point with something because we're not the same and neither one of us are perfect. We're going to make mistakes. We know this. If we know this going in, let's talk about it. This is something we do with all of our clients. We just had a client that was just like, you know what, I'm frustrated because things aren't going the way I was planning, and it's not all your fault, but you warned me this was happen, so now I'm going to talk to you about it. And it was really cool that he didn't have to worry about bottling it up. And we do that with our clients all the time. We talk to all of our clients about expectations,
Mm-hmm.
but we forget to talk about it with our team. I do I share a lot of dating analogies because most people think, oh, interviewing is just a thing we have to do with business. I'm like, well, think about it. It's a relationship. And imagine that if you've ever moved in with anybody before, imagine that before you moved in together and you're sitting in the driveway together and you're like, we're going to move in together. This is super exciting. You actually had a list where you went through all the stupid stuff that you fight about for the first 6 months that you're living together, like where the shoes go after you kick them off, which way the toilet paper goes, how you squeeze the toothpaste, can you drink out of the milk cartons or not? Like just the stupid stuff that drives us
Yeah.
nuts because we're different. Imagine that before you walked in that door, you just had a list of like 60 things and you're like, this one, this one, this one, and you checked it all off. Imagine what the first few months of living together would be like. You wouldn't have those little fights. The same thing happens in business. Somebody shows up for their first day of work and, oh, their accounts aren't set up. Like that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Their email's not there. We haven't ordered their business cards. Maybe their I-9's not back. Their background check's not back. Happens all the time. And then what's the employee think? They show up and they're like, oh, I thought they said they were excited to have me here.
Right.
They've done nothing in the last 2 weeks. Well, what if you just set expectations and said, hey, we have no control over the background check. Sometimes it takes a little longer than we'd like. And if that
Right.
happens, no worries. You still show up on day one and we'll work through it. it would just be such an easier onboarding if you just took time to set those expectations up front.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we got very intentional about is what does our onboarding look like? What is our team member going to experience?
Mm,
How are they going to feel when they sit down for their first day? And one of the challenges that we have is we're a completely remote company. And, both of my companies are. And we have team members and clients all over the US that we work with.
hmm
And so when we hire somebody, they're not coming into our brick and mortar office. It is a virtual experience to where their first day is in their home office. And how can we really make their first day, amazing and where it feels like a real first day? And so
hmm
we've had to get very intentional about, making sure their welcome package shows up before their first day. And what things are we going to put into that welcome package so they feel, included and they feel, like they are working with a team. We set up, people for them to connect with. We have an agenda for the day so they know what is my first day going to look like and make sure that there's nothing unexpected that's going to happen and what are some of the things I can look forward to.
mm
So I know we've gotten very intentional about what a first day looks like and we have even developed check-ins to help define those expectations. And mind you, this is just from my background as a, business consultant and strategist, looking at where can we close these gaps and then myself and my team kind of developing these things from scratch, or at least the ones who lasted through bad onboarding,
Yeah,
right? and
yeah.
and they're still sticking in with us, but they have contributed to help develop that further and make it better. So I know the value of not having to create the wheel because we have created so much of that in our company without the proper guidance or even a professional coming in and saying, hey, what about this or what about that?
hmm
And if you looked at this and we have this process that you can follow and you can kind of customize it a little bit to yourself, but this is the foundation that's going to give you that success. So I love how much you guys have established this foundation of the hiring process, the interview process, what's going to make that successful for your company in the future. And guess what? You don't have to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars
mm
in, just testing this out and building this yourself because, you can work with us and we can make sure that it's going to be successful for you.
Yeah, I was when you were talking, it got me thinking. When you said you got your team involved and they helped you build this process, and we have clients all the time. How do I know what's really going to engage my team? How do I know what someone's going to like on their first day? And they always just laugh at me when I give them the answer. And it's such a simple answer, but so many people like just disregard it. But ask them. Engage your people and say,
Yeah.
hey, what would you have wanted? What could we do that would engage you? What do you think would be fun on your first day of work? How would it make it feel like a normal first day? Normal is so subjective. I know a lot of home service contractors that a normal first day is they show up and they stand around the front office looking around going, does anybody know I'm here? Like that's
Right.
normal. Imagine
Yeah.
if there was a sign on the front door that said, hey, Christine, we're so excited to have you here. Come on back. We're waiting for you. And when you get back there, there's some balloons and just a little bit of it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, but just a little bit of a celebration. Like you're here. We're so excited.
Right.
That would be abnormal. That would not be normal for most of the people that we talk to. But it's so simple to do. I think we just disregard it. We forget it because we're so busy as entrepreneurs. We're wearing 27 different hats. And the recruiting hat I've experienced is the one that people want to take off as soon as it's done. Like they
Oh,
resist putting
yes.
it on. And as soon as someone says, yes, I'll be here next Monday, they take it off and they're like, oh, finally, I can move on. And unfortunately, that's what causes a lot of the problems. Most of the people we talk to don't have hiring problems. They have retention problems.
Yeah.
And the retention problems are solved by slowing down and spending time with another person, another human being, and making a connection and having a conversation with them and making them feel welcome and celebrated. Stop celebrating people and throwing parties for them when they retire, and start throwing parties and celebrating people when they show up and join the team. And that will do
Right.
so much more for you.
Yeah, because most likely they're not going to just retire. They're going to slowly phase themselves out because they love their job so much that they're not looking forward to retirement.
Yeah.
They can't see themselves not working, even if it's reducing their time to part-time or part-time, not contributing something valuable to the company and culture that they've been a part of for so long.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I know another challenge that business owners face is, and of course, when we talk about this, we chuckle about it because we're all kind of guilty of it, but we call it baptism by fire. So we're like, you're here, you're hired, and now hit the ground running,
Yeah.
get to work.
Yeah.
And then they're shocked, 2 weeks later, where they're like, why is this technician not working the way that they're supposed to?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So been a bunch of research studies on this, because you may have heard that the cost to replace someone can be as much as 2 times their annual salary.
Hmm.
And so we hear these studies about replacing people. We don't see a lot of studies on what it takes to engage and get productivity up. But there's one that I'm thinking of right now. They said that by the end of 6 months, your new hire is producing at 25% of someone who's been there for more than 2 years.
Wow.
And it's not because they don't know how to do the work. Okay. It's not because a technician doesn't know how to do the work. What it is they don't know how to do the work your way. Because if you did the
Hmm.
work exactly like everybody else, you're not going to be in business very long, because there has to be something that differentiates you in the eyes of the customer. So you do the work differently. And it can take up to a year before they fully understand how you do it differently. So
Yeah.
what I tell people is, if within the first 90 days of someone being there, and usually things run on about a 90-day cadence in business. In the first 90 days, if you dismiss somebody or they quit, you made a hiring mistake. The decision that you made to offer them the job and hire them was wrong. Either because you didn't have enough information, because you had the rose-colored glasses on, because you were so desperate, you're like, another set of hands, that's all I need. Whatever it was, it's on you. And I know that might be harsh to hear, but if you're turning people in the first 90 days, whether your choice or theirs, it's on you. It takes the job seeker 10 weeks from the time they decide to start looking to the time they get their first job, on average, 10 weeks. Which means if they left you in the first 90 days, they never stopped looking. And they never stopped
Right.
looking because there was something about you, your company, your offer, your message, something that put them on high alert and said, I should keep the channels open and I should keep looking, because there's something that's not going to be right. And so
Yeah.
it's very important to understand that in that first 90 days, if someone's not working out, you need to look in the mirror and say, what could I have done differently? You can't blame them. Looking for work is one of life's most stressful events. It's on the psychological stressors, it's usually number 7 or 8 every year. This is the same list as death of a spouse, terminal health diagnosis, loss of a job, critical illness and injury and stuff like that. It's a big deal to look for work. It is super stressful. And as employers, it's our responsibility to take these job seekers and say, we're going to make this as easy as possible for you. But when we hire them because they pass the I can fog a mirror test and they show up on the first day and they stand around going, oh, I don't know that they even thought I would show up today. And then we send them into the truck or we send them into the field. And we say, get to work. This person will teach you. And of course, that person's got a full-time job already. They don't have the time to teach them. And that baptism by fire happens. They sit there going, I just went through one of the most stressful periods of my life. I took a chance on this company. I put my family's livelihood and my personal livelihood and goals and plans for my future on the line because I thought this would be better. And this is how they're treating me. And that is why we have such high turnover in the blue collar space. Because the mentality is, oh, they're just a set of hands that just need a job and they'll just do it and they're used to it. Because they're used to it doesn't mean it's okay. This is why we have people not coming into the industry. Because it's got this reputation of we treat our people like garbage. Now, you might be listening to this and going, no, I treat my people awesome. And kudos to you. But you're the exception, not the rule.
Right. Yeah, and I think some good points that you made were one. I always say, I would make a horrible employee, right? As a business owner, horrible employee. Yeah. So, but I'm a very ambitious business owner, and I try to learn and be mindful and grow. And I think that that's something that we forget as entrepreneurs and business owners is it's very hard for us to understand what an employee experience looks like because we're not employees. We're horrible employees. We should never sign up for it. We would absolutely torture another business owner if we did. Yeah. And so we might forget the journey that our employees are having or the experience or the mindset. And it also goes on that reverse where our employees are never going to be business owners because if they were, they wouldn't be working for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. That reminds me, I was just working with a leadership team and the owner wasn't feeling well. So he was just sitting back. He was on silent. We were doing this virtual workshop and the leadership team was talking and I asked them the question. I said, if you could change something about the business, what would it be? And, the director of HR finance, she pipes up and she goes, gosh, I just wish people would stop asking me for a copy of their pay stub. Like that just is such a drain for me. And then the director of field operations was like, you know what? I wish people would stop asking me if I got their message, their email, their phone call, all of that stuff. Leave me alone. Yes, I got it. Technology works. Leave me alone. And I ended up talking to the owner later and he's like, what stupid stuff they're complaining about? Like, that's dumb. Like, look at the big picture stuff. Like, you need to get out of the weeds and get the picture stuff. And I said, you have to remember something. While that stuff might seem stupid to you and inconsequential to you, it's a big deal to them. And we have to understand that if it's a big deal to them, we have to support them and help them through it. I don't have to sit there and listen to people go, can I have a copy of my pay stub 30 times a day? They do. And for them, that's a huge drain for them because they want to serve the employees. That's why they're here. I mean, that's why you get into HR, right? Is you want to serve people. And you're right. We are cut from different cloths. As entrepreneurs, we can never be an employee, and most employees will never be an entrepreneur. And we very rarely will even understand each other. And so a lot of the times when we build an interview process, we can't interview like an owner. We have to interview like a manager, like someone who's in the weeds with them and dealing with the day-to-day stuff and can empathize with what they're going through. Because as an owner, it's like, well, why don't you just make that decision? Why don't you just do this? Why don't you take that huge risk? Well, because most people are risk adverse. They don't like to take risk like entrepreneurs do. But I think we forget that as entrepreneurs. And it's very difficult, which is why we're so focused on an objective interview process. It's very difficult for entrepreneurs to take that step back and step out of the owner seat and step into an employee seat. It's very difficult. So that's why we build a process that as long as the owners follow it, they'll get the results they're looking for.
Yeah, I love that perspective because it ties back to some coaching things that I've learned, which has helped me be a better leader, is meeting people where they're at,
Yeah.
and identifying like, where are you at? Like being aware, like they're not at the same place I am.
Hmm.
Where are they at and where do I need to meet them? So then at that point, you can establish focus on what's important. And it's not just a one-sided important conversation. It goes both ways. Conversation is a two-way flow.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's important to you and what's important to me? And let's get on the same page and see if we can establish this focus. So I really do think like what you're sharing is, as leaders and employers and entrepreneurs, business owners, there is this level of leadership that we need to learn and how to show up so we can then create these processes in our businesses, so we can connect with our team members,
Yeah.
so we can show up, as a leader as we should be, not with this old madman mentality of, this is your job, come here, do your job, enjoy it, shut up, we'll get you a paycheck.
Yeah.
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro.
Yeah, I like to tell people to automate the predictable, automate the important, because when you automate the things that computers can do or that systems can do, you can spend more time being a good leader. You can spend more time investing in your team personally. And that was one of my things, was like, hey, if you are struggling to get things done and invest in your team because people are nagging you about paychecks all the time, we need to look at a system where people can log in and get their own paycheck. And they still are manually writing paychecks. That's what they do. And I was like, no, we need to look into that system now. And sometimes the owners step back and go, it's more money. I've already got a person to do it. But we pay people to do people things. We need to pay computers to do computer things.
Right.
And I think we forget that sometimes. It's like, well, I have a person that can do all that. Yeah, but that person isn't able to do people things now. And so it's so critical to be able to distinguish between, is this something that a person should be doing, or is this something that I can outsource or automate so that they don't have to deal with that anymore? And as we said before, entrepreneurs, owners, we're just different. We think differently than employees. And so we might not think it's a big deal, but to them, it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that we use, which is a coaching concept from Michael Bungay Stanner, which is one of my absolute favorite, coaching people with businesses, is he says, is it the person or is it the process? Mm-hmm. And it really, for me, it defined, this line and this different perspective to where I could look at the person involved and I can say, are they willing to do it or unwilling to do it? Mm. Or is it a problem with the process that's not allowing them, to follow through to do it, or even to the level of expectations that I would want? Like, what's missing?
Yeah. And we coach very similar to that. When an employee makes a mistake or frustrates you, or you're upset with an employee's performance, before you take it out on the person, I want you to look at, did they follow the process? If they followed the process and their performance is poor, you have a process problem. You don't have a personnel problem. You have a process problem. Now, if they followed the process and now they have a performance problem. Or sorry, if they didn't follow the process and that's why they have a performance problem, now you have a behavior issue. And that's a personnel issue. And it's really important to make that distinction, but I think it's so easy to see a performance issue or a behavior issue and just automatically blame the person because, well, that's my business's process. Like that's mine. That can't be a problem. And often the process is the issue. It's not the person. Now, if you have someone who's insubordinate and saying, we had this happen. We had a client in construction and they had an employee fall 35 feet, which is a big deal.
Goodness.
And he was even wearing a safety harness, but he didn't clip off because he had been in the industry for 30 years. He was just crawling up to the top of his pier so that he could grab some tools. And he's like, I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm good. I've never fallen. Like I've never had it. And sure enough, the one time he didn't clip off. So he didn't follow the process. So that was a person issue. Now, in that situation, that's extreme. Most of the time, if people don't follow processes, it's not life or death. It's like we can fix it.
Right.
But in the construction world, it's literally life or death if people don't follow the process. And so we often see that those processes are almost overdone to avoid that problem. But we still see people not following the processes. And then it falls into the employee, like you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think I've been guilty of that as well, to where even through our interviewing process that we have is I will put things in place, or I have put things in place in the past, to deal with the one issue that occurred. And it's kind of like, associated with like trauma or something along those lines where, I'm looking at it and going, oh, okay, that happened once. It was really horrible. Let's put all these processes in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I think that, that's another point, is being aware of not overdoing things in the business, because it can disrupt the culture through whether it's your hiring process, your onboarding process, or just your day-to-day operations. It can highly impact, your culture, your team, people who are really trying to be productive and showing up and being sincere with the best of intentions.
Yeah. Yeah. And we see that on both sides. We see that both in the interview process. We see that in once they're on the team. And people struggle with that communication piece so much. It's almost to the point where you have to give people the benefit of the doubt. You have to trust. And we do a lot of coaching around trust when we're building teams and we're talking about communication, because that's where things mostly break down. But one thing I want to get back to the interview process and talking about this and people and not being able to communicate well is, remember something, that when someone is interviewing with you, they're going through one of life's most stressful events. And for many times, they're not themselves. They're not the person that you're actually going to end up working with. And it's because we all do this. We all know how important first impressions are. They fake it. They fake it. And they know what you want to hear. They know what they need to say, and it's your job as the employer to be able to help them communicate, help them share that stuff with you so that you know who that authentic person is. And I have so many times I get pushback and they're like, well, that's not my job. And I'm like, well, it sort of is. It's your business. You have to coach your people. You have to be willing to step alongside them and help them become authentic right there in front of you. And we talked about onboarding, we talked about employee experience. It all starts with that first application, what that looks like.
So what can a company or their team members do to ensure that they are conducting exceptional interviews and leaving that lasting impression where somebody's like, I absolutely want this job. I want to work for this company?
The first and probably easiest thing to do is to listen more than you talk during the interview. Spend time listening more. We had a client years ago and they go, yeah, here's my interview process. And the first step was spend 20 to 25 minutes selling the company on why you're so important and why you're so good. And literally, and he goes, he got this from one of his business coaches. It's 20, 25 minutes of basically selling the company. And then it was like 5 or 6 questions to ask the person. And the thing is, when you spend 25 minutes telling them about the company, you just gave them all the answers to the test. So anything you ask after that, of course, you're going to hear the right answer. But I think it would help us all if we could learn to ask a question, be comfortable in the silence while they process how to respond, and let them respond. Don't feel like we have to fill the silence. If you're doing a skills assessment with someone, don't feel like you have to sit there and watch over them for the skills assessment. Build your skills assessment in a way that mimics the real world. You're not going to go to every job with them. So why would you put that undue pressure on them during the to watch over them while they're attempting to, I don't know, change a toilet or put in a new run cap or maintain some equipment to see how well they do? You would never watch over them in the field. So make sure that your interview process is as close to real life as possible. And the reality is you're not going to be going to the job with them and you're not going to be talking their ear off. Let them talk.
Yeah.
Let them produce. Let them show you what they're capable of.
And what are some, like, one or two, I'm sure you have a gauntlet of them in your process, but what are a few 1 or 2 kind of key questions that can spark a conversation with a potential hire when someone's interviewing that will give the interviewer more insight on who this person is or how they show up?
I mean, one of the easiest ones is, tell me about a personal goal you have. Now, I know people are listening like, what's that have to do with work? Everything. Because people work to live. They come to you and trade their time and their talents for money so that they can use that money to go do personal stuff. So when you find out what their personal goals are, you're going to learn more about that person and you're going to connect with that person way faster than you would if you asked them about their professional goals.
Yeah.
So that's one of the first ones. And then, often people will be like, well, I don't have any personal goals. I've never thought about it before. And I will tell you then the follow-up question is, do you mind if we take 10 minutes to talk about that? Because guess what? If they don't have personal goals, there is no way on planet Earth you are going to get them to have professional goals.
Right.
You can tell them what their professional goals are and force feed it to them, but they're never going to be bought in. They're never going to want to do the work that it takes to accomplish them. But what you'll find out is that if you sit down and have a conversation with someone, especially if they've never been asked that question before, you probably find out they have a ton of personal goals. They just don't know how to articulate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that we've run into, especially in the trades industry and the lawn and landscape industries and their environment, is they will bring people on as technicians and nobody has ever talked to them about what their goals are in their life or simple things that they want to achieve. And as business owners, we have these huge, lofty goals. But the technicians and workers that are applying at our companies, they might just want to, be able to have a 3-day weekend every once in a while to go on their, son's baseball camp. Or, just be able to have 3 cats versus 2 because their cats bring so much joy to their life. Something very simple, be able to replace the tires on their car, in the next 6 months because they're worried about their family car being safe. So there's these very basic things that are goals that they see as these big goals. But as business owners, we can be a little bit dismissive or have this oversight of what lofty goals are or what basic goals are to other people that aren't out there, doing the crazy things that us as entrepreneurs are doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Yeah. For so many of them, especially we see this a lot in the trades, most of them don't have PTO. They don't have paid time off. And to your point, some of them might just want to take a 3-day vacation. Some of them might just want to be able to afford to take their kids to Disneyland. Some of them might just want to be able to, put new tires in there or buy new clothes for their kids. Like, these are simple, like, to us as entrepreneurs, we're like, that's so silly. But no, this is the reality for so many people that work for us. And if you're not able to sit down and have those conversations with them, and not from a perspective of, oh, you're going to shame them, which is why a lot of people won't talk about that stuff, because they've probably been shamed in the past. But to really come alongside them, put your arm around them and say, how can I help you do this? You know, it reminds me of the book Dream Manager. Have you read that?
I have. We have it as a process we implement in our company when we onboard somebody.
Love the book. And, you know, you look at the janitorial company as the example in there, and like most people just wanted to buy a house or get out of debt or simple things that we forgot about because we did that 20 years ago. Back then, that was our personal goals. And but a lot of times the people on our team, that's all they want, is just to be able to have those simple things. And we are so capable of helping them accomplish them if we just sit down, take the time, and have the conversation.
Yeah, I like that. I like that perspective of, and I think it feeds to, again, like, meet them where they're at, realize who you have in front of you, see them for who they are. And if you ask these questions and you're opening up that space for that communication to happen, they're going to very much be seen and heard and, you know, recognized for the job they're showing up for, their skills and talents that you're looking for the job that they're showing up for. And just that personal connection of, hey, I see you, I care about you, I'm interested.
Yeah. So just spending time getting to know them. I mean, that's probably the biggest tip I could give anybody in the interview process. And, you know, I hear a lot of times too, people say, I just wish people would be authentic. And they don't always use that word, but just be real. And they're like, how do I get people to be more authentic? And the reality is, be authentic yourself. And we're not very good at that as entrepreneurs. We're really good at faking it because we do it all the time. We can't let our employees know that we don't know if we're going to cover payroll this week. So what do? We fake it. We have this persona that we put on, and we're so used to it that we carry that into the interviews. And then we're shocked because someone would fake it with us. Like, we're blown away that they would do it. But we do it all the time. And to get people to show up authentically in the interview, just be authentic yourself. We had one client a few years ago. I remember he goes, here's the deal. I'm a real pain in the ass if the reports don't look right. And the reports cannot look right because they didn't get updated. The reports cannot look like because I don't like the way that they're trending or the colors that are on there or whatever. But I'm telling you right now, you do not want to be around me when the reports are a mess. And all he's doing is saying, hey, this is who I am. But what we did with his team was we said, here's the deal. You want him to stay out of your world? Stay on top of your reports. And it took a while for them to get used to that. But then finally, and then he disappeared. And they're like, where'd he go? And I'm like, well, the reports have looked great for 2 weeks. He doesn't need to be here. But he got authentic and he started sharing that during the interview. He said, this is who I am. This is what it's like to work here and what it's like to work with me. We had a client years ago that the whole leadership team was very, very passive aggressive and almost proud of it. They all went to high school together and they all knew each other. And it was like a good old boys club, like a fraternity. And they were always zinging each other and very passive aggressive. And nobody could ever figure out why they couldn't keep salespeople, why they couldn't keep their fulfillment managers. They couldn't figure this out. And so finally I said, you guys just need to own it. Just own this. And we rewrote their job ads. We rewrote their interview questions and how they talk about people. And they basically just said, we're a passive aggressive bunch. We love it. We love zinging each other. We love not telling each other the truth. And that's what we do. And I'll never forget, one of them read the job ad. They're like, I want to work here. I'm like, you do. And they started hiring a completely different type of person that all of a sudden fit inside their culture. Remember, even a bad culture is a good culture for the right person. And so once they started hiring the right people, it was crazy. But that authenticity is so critical in the interview to get the right people and to get people that are going to be engaged long term.
Yeah, and I think that that's a huge challenge for business owners, and it does impact their hiring. It impacts their culture. It impacts, the longevity of the people that they bring on the team. Is they haven't been given that permission to show up as their true authentic self, and they feel criticized for being who they truly authentically are because people have been hired and brought into the company that where the core values aren't matching, the culture type isn't matching, and so then it's criticized, and the owner's going, oh well, nobody likes what I do, I can never do anything right, there's no way of pleasing these people, and it just kind of ends up in this never ending kind of like circling the drain of I can't be the leader I want to be because I'm so criticized of being my authentic self.
It's I personally believe that organizations, any organization that's having a tough time with their team or building a team or keeping people productive or engaged, it's a communication issue. That's the root cause, is communication. And, it didn't get broke overnight. It's not going to get fixed overnight. But when you run into that and people are like, I don't feel like I can be my authentic self, and I don't feel like these people care, and I don't feel like they get it, it's probably because they don't know. It's probably because you're not doing a good job explaining it to them and helping them understand it from their perspective. Like, that's the thing. We think that as owners, we can say something that we would say to one of our owner friends and they would get it. And we think our employees get it. Our employees don't get it. Right? Our employees are not thinking about whether or not we're going to make payroll this week or whether or not we lost that big client and what the impact is to them. They're not thinking about that. What they're thinking about is, I got to go home and I got to deal with my kid who's getting D's in school.
Yeah.
They're not dealing with the stuff you are.
Life is happening.
And so they're not going to understand it the way you understand it. And that's why I think in the interview process, it's so important to be just transparent, be vulnerable, share with them, this is what's really going on. Anybody that says our company is perfect during the interview process is full of it. There's no such thing, because we're all run by imperfect people. Stop making yourself look like something you're not and just be authentic yourself. And that happens in the interview. And it happens by spending more time with the person. People always ask me how long an interview should take. And our interview process is 4 stages. They do not have to be separate meetings. You can do all 4 stages in one day. It's fine. But you're looking at like a 4-hour interview to get through all of 4 stages, because that's how long it takes to really get to know somebody. And if you can't spend 4 hours with the right person and you can't invest in them up front, what's that say about long term and their ability to engage and retain them and keep them productive? If you can't invest the 4 hours up front before you start working together, then you're going to spend even less time with them when you're there, and they're just going to frustrate you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. Our interview process, the more time we invested in it, the better people, we ended up hiring. And in addition to that, we learned who our people are, and we know, like, I always say, my team is gritty. And, they're go-getters, like they GSD all over the place. But that's the people we hire. That's the people we attract. And once we started intentionally making that part of our interview process of letting them know, hey, this is how we show up. This is how the team operates, and really clarifying that it was easier to recruit the people that belonged versus the people that were just aspiring to be like us. We got the people that were already like us, not the ones that were thinking like, oh, yeah, that all sounds really good, I want to be that. Yeah. But if they show up and they're not there yet, and they're just aspiring to who we are and how we operate, then they fail pretty fast.
Yeah.
Because, we're already running the race. They need to be running the race when they join our team, not thinking about, warming up or getting in the game or anything like that. Like, our team is fast moving. So I think that's a very good point, is, really identifying like who we are as a company, how we show up, how we communicate, giving the interviewee some space for us to learn who they are and communicate that, and then share some things about the company afterwards, and who we are and how we show up. So I like those processes. Is there any other things that you can share around your process? Because I know you have a very successful, proven process with Core Matters. What have you not shared with us in that journey?
Well, there's a lot of things, but I'll share this because I think this is where most people get it wrong. They think that recruiting is an HR activity. It's a compliance thing that we do, and finance is involved. And what they fail to realize is that recruiting in and of itself is a marketing activity. It's about putting the right message in front of the right people at the right time. And that's marketing 101. We do it all the time for our customers. We think about, okay, we've got to get the right message in front of the right people. We have to talk to the things that are important to them, not the things that are important to us, right? They need to be the hero in the story, not us. It's the same thing when we're recruiting. We need to have that right marketing message. And one of the first things you do when you have a customer and you start thinking customer marketing, one of the first things you do is you identify who your ideal customer is. You really think, who is the right person to buy our product or service? And you build everything around that right ideal person. Yet, I have yet to meet a company that has actually done that for recruiting. To sit down and say, who is the right employee from us? And not just our ideal employee has this experience and they went to this school and they've done these types of things, but like from a behavior perspective, from a traits perspective, from a who they really are and what drives and motivates them, thinking about those things, who's the right employee? And when you have that, everything else is going to become so much easier. Because you know exactly what to say, when to say it. You're going to know where to put that information because you're going to know where they're spending their time, what they do for fun, what their hobbies are. And recruiting has become so much easier for you. But I think people skip that stage because usually what happens is they go, oh my gosh, Jimmy just quit. We got to replace Jimmy. Or, oh my gosh, I just took on a job that I know we can't service. We got to go hire people. And it's always reactive. Spend the time up front planning, figuring out who the right person is, where they spend their time, what they like to do for fun, and you have so much easier time recruiting them.
I love that. Yeah, and I totally agree with you. You know, identifying your ideal employee is just as valuable as identifying your ideal customer, and investing that time and getting that marketing message right so your recruitment is seamless. And then your retention as well can be seamless. So I really appreciate like all the valuable insights that you shared today. And is there anything else that you would like to provide our listeners with a key takeaway on, you know, the importance of hosting a great interview?
Take your time. I'm just going to reiterate it. Take your time, not in how long in between meetings or interviews, but when you sit down with that person, don't be on the clock. Take your time with that person. Spend time following up on their questions, asking them about the things that motivate them personally. Because remember, people do not live to work. They work so they can live. That personal gain that they get from working for you is way more important to them than anything you could ever provide them. So if you can help them achieve their personal goals, help them out personally, like you were talking about 3-day weekends, you know, new tires on the car, those things are so critical. And that's what's important to them. And see, if you just slow down and spend more time with them during the interview process, things will get so much easier for you.
Excellent. Very wise words. I appreciate you sharing them with our listeners, and I hope that they have found lots of value on solving their recruitment and long-term retention issues that I think all trades companies and service companies have these days. And we do have, you know, a gap in that hiring and recruitment with people coming into these industries. So once we get the right people, we don't want to lose them. So how can, if our listeners want to connect with you, Ryan, and learn more about your proven process, how do they find you?
The best way is just to go to my website at corematters.com. And or they can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. But I also do have something for your listeners if you'd like me to let them know about that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We love to give things away to our listeners.
So if you go to corematters.com/Green Profit Academy, all one word, there will be an opportunity for them to download and get access to a couple of things. One is our 2-minute survey. We call it our recruiting roadblock survey. You get free access to that. And that'll look at all 7 areas of their business when it comes to recruiting and retention and let them know where the greatest opportunities are. We also have access to a 10-minute masterclass that I put together that talks about the state of recruiting right now, why it's not working so well, and some tools that they can implement right away to start getting better results. And then finally, you mentioned it earlier, my new book's coming out. And so they get pre-release copy, the first 2 chapters of my book. They can get that download as well.
Love it. Yeah, I love all of that. I think it will be a huge value for anybody who takes advantage of that opportunity. And thank you again for showing up today, sharing all of your amazing wisdom on recruitment, and as well some leadership tools that you shared, and then also the tools that you're going to give out to our listeners. So we will include all of your links for what you're giving away and how to contact you in our show notes.
Awesome. Thanks, Christine.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
The show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.